It's October, it's spooky season, and there's nothing better than a good horror movie. Unfortunately, I've seen all the good ones, so instead we're watching this. I went on Tubi to try to find something and I ended up on 2017's Dark Web. Now, I went in expecting a regular movie with some kind of narrative and plot and conclusion, but that's not what I got. But to be fair, this was partly my own fault. I didn't read the description. I didn't want any spoilers, okay? I don't like to know what's coming ahead of time. I saw the title and I said, great, a movie about the Dark Web, I'm in. But it says right there in the description it's an anthology movie, and that's kind of disappointing because I'm not the biggest fan of anthology movies. Yeah, there are some good ones like Trick or Treat or The Mortuary Collection, but most of the time it just feels like a bunch of half-baked ideas stuffed together. And this is the perfect example of that. These ones were bad, like really bad. Like the last one left me furious at how bad it was.
Justine! Run, Justine! Run, just go!
But it wasn't all bad. There was actually one segment that I liked, but anyways, it was my fault for not reading. But I came out feeling bamboozled in another way, just completely goofed on. This movie had nothing to do with the Dark Web. I read the title, it should be about the Dark Web. Let me explain. Oh, and I might need to be a little bit careful with some of the language I use in the images just because this is YouTube after all. So the movie starts out with this segment that's not bad, but it's so short that it probably shouldn't be in the movie. Like I could see this as a YouTube short or just a short parody video. There's no explanation to the cause of this, and we never come back to it. The effects were actually pretty decent. Unfortunately, I can't show much of that here. We get our title, Dark Web. Then some computer stuff to make it seem dark webby. Now we get to this sorry Bilbo Baggins looking ass. Poor guy, that wide-angle lens is doing him no favors. This guy had such a unique face, I just had to look him up to see if he was in anything else, and he was. He was the doctor in The Human Centipede 2. I didn't watch that one because one Human Centipede was enough for me. So this is our little through story that's supposed to connect all our segments, but the setup just makes no sense. And I'll get to that. He's talking to someone named Pink Bunny on his computer, and they ask if he wants to see something crazy. And we jump right into our first story. We start out with this man walking around an apartment when he walks up to what is presumably his victim. And while playing with her locket, he cuts his finger, which freaks him out. It seems like he's a serial killer who's afraid of his own blood. Okay, that could be something interesting. He proceeds to dispose of the body, then goes back to his apartment, where he steps in some blood and has another freak out. So wait, that wasn't his own blood, so he's a serial killer who's afraid of blood and has a meltdown every time he sees it. That's like being a sailor who's afraid of water, or a surgeon who's afraid of blood. It just doesn't work. So what happens when he's trying to do his thing? If he's attacking someone and they get a cut on him, he just collapses to the ground in fear? This guy would get caught so fast. Anyway, the movie does nothing with that. It's just an endless series of him encountering blood, having a panic attack, and just repeating over and over again. And it gets progressively worse. I'm gonna need to censor all of this. It starts appearing all over the walls until he gets so fed up, he grabs a knife and storms into a room where he's greeted with what we can only assume are the ghosts of his victims. She shows him a locket and that's it. Cut back to the Dark Web computer and we're with Bilbo Baggins and Pink Bunny again. Now remember, at this point, I still don't realize it's an anthology movie. And you might be thinking, how dumb can you be? But if you think about it, it just doesn't make sense. It's set up like a VHS movie. The series, not the media. It's set up as if Bilbo here is being shown dark web videos by the mysterious Pink Bunny. But these aren't dark web videos. You'd expect them to be in the found footage format, as if someone actually recorded these and uploaded to the dark web. But these are just regular, traditional shot movies. So is Pink Bunny just showing this guy movies and being like,
look how crazy this is?
I have a theory about this that makes the whole movie make sense, but I'll get to that later. This is actually the one segment I kinda liked. Now Pink Bunny says, let's watch something while we wait for our guest to arrive, leading us into our next segment. It starts with Megamind here, holding up in his apartment with the news playing in the background, calling for a storm that might beat the previous record set back in 1978. This date is important. While sitting there, he opens up his mail and finds a mysterious photo of what appears to be a laptop screen with his name and today's date on it. Weird. He falls asleep for a bit and wakes up to the sound of static on his TV. Here's where I'm expecting Samara to come crawling out. But no, he sees a woman looking back at him in her apartment. They quickly realize they can talk to each other, and this is where Megamind's acting really shines.
I guess our signals got crossed. Did you lose your power too?
Makes sense. That'll cause it.
Yeah.
After talking for a minute, they start to realize they're both in the same apartment. But how is this possible? They're talking to each other through time itself.
What?
The date.
February 21st?
The year.
year.
1978?
Time travel.
Why?
Okay, look.
Oh, the acting. Oh no. This is, oh man. He looks so unimpressed by the fact that time travel exists. She doesn't believe it at first, but to prove it, he whips out his super futuristic BlackBerry phone to prove it. She wants proof because nobody's gonna believe her, so she whips out her Polaroid camera. He types something out on his computer and shows it to her so she can take a picture of it. But wait a minute, that's the same picture we were looking at earlier. What? He decides to do a quick Google search to see where she is in the modern day, but it turns out she was murdered. She goes off to the other room, but then he sees someone in her apartment, so he starts calling out. But oh no, now Megamind's getting attacked too. But just as you think all hope is lost, Justine gets up and takes out the killer. It seems somehow the future has changed, and our modern day killer starts to choke. Because as all the good time travel movies have taught us, if you pass away in the past, you don't exist in the future. Justine is alive. We cut to the present day and Justine sees Megamind. It's the morning before the terrifying night, and she hands him the photograph, starting the whole loop over again. Then we get a nice little jump scare to Bilbo's face. And that's as good as this movie gets, which is not saying much. Bad acting aside, it at least held my attention. The next segment is the longest, but also the one I'll talk about the least. While the acting is better, the whole thing is just unoriginal and dull. Basic setup is these interns at some sort of startup company are being told by their boss they're going on a team building exercise. Some badass music plays while we watch them slowly drive down a country road in a scene that goes on way too long. And the main villain here, Bossman, gives them a little speech before he tells them the real reason they're here. They're gonna be hunted. Amy Schumer here gives them the best line in response.
This is kind of weirding me out. I'm not sure I'm okay with this. I'm just gonna sit it out.
Yeah, I don't think it works
This isn't like getting picked last in gym class.
Exactly. One guy refuses and gets hit with the most anticlimactic sounding bullet ever. So we get boring scene after boring scene of them running through the forest and fields. They clearly just knew someone who owned a farm and would let them film there for free. They're hunted one by one until we finally get down to the last intern. Boss Lady's all alone here with Intern Lady. It's a mano-y-mano fight to the end. The intern wins and finishes her off with the same fart-sounding shot. Bossman shows up, and in a shocking twist, she allows her to live. She passed the test and she is now one of them.
One of us! One of us!
And thankfully that segment is over. But now it gets even worse in the most infuriating way. I hated this next segment so much. First we cut back to Pink Bunny and Bilbo for a minute, and it seems like his date has arrived. She seems to be a lady of the night, if you know what I mean. Bilbo steps out for a minute to get her a drink, and Pink Bunny shows her another dark web video. It starts off with the most Australian sounding person ever walking around her house.
Okay, listen.
But oh no, there's a man in a mask behind her. He knocks her out and takes her to the most disgusting looking room ever. At least they gave her a bucket, and when she finally decides she has to go, the funniest thing happens. Just as she sits down, you hear the camera shutter go off, like ch-ch-ch-ch. But it's a security camera, like it wouldn't need to do that. It's a video. It happens 3 times before she just says F it and goes anyways. Guards come in and rough her up a bit and take her to the second room. Now, it's a nice clean room, but it still has that same nasty bucket. She freaks out and starts screaming and breaks the bucket on the wall. And this is where I noticed something wrong with the sound. Wait a second, is that audio? Is it like out of sync? It is, oh my god. It's like that the whole time. I didn't notice up till this point because there was very little dialogue and it was mostly just screaming. And let's face it, when Australian people talk, it sounds like their words aren't in sync with their mouth anyway. I'm just joking, your accents are cool. I especially shouldn't be making fun of anyone when I can barely form a sentence. I refreshed the page to see if it would fix it, but it was just like that. I skipped back and forth through the movie and it was the only segment that was out of sync. I wouldn't even put up a YouTube video if the sound was out of sync, and you put up your movie like this? Have some self-respect, man. Anyways, we get a little montage to show she's been in there a while before the doors to her cell slowly open up. What? There's a crowd there and cameras. A host announces that she's been on a reality game show this whole time. Wow, such commentary on modern society. I am 14 and this is deep.
I am 14 and this is deep!
And now we're gonna find out if she won the big prize. So wait, there's a chance she won't win? They forced her against her will and there's a chance she'll just walk away with nothing? but luckily she wins. Yay. 200 grand to stay in a room for 3 months? I would do it. I'd like to be told ahead of time, but it doesn't seem that bad. Take a couple beatings here and there. The whole story felt like a Black Mirror reject. They thought that little twist at the end would make up for that weak attempt at a movie. Just glad it's over. Finally, we're back to Bilbo for the conclusion of his story. He sneaks up on her and takes her out with a crowbar. But just as he starts celebrating, another twist happens.
I did it! We did it!
This movie's just twist after twist, edge of your seat suspense. She slowly rises back up and bites his neck. It turns out she's a vampire. And I can't show you the rest because it gets nasty. Even though it just looks like she's eating red jello, YouTube probably won't like that. But there it is, the grand conclusion to our story. So when does the dark web stuff start? It's the title of the damn movie. My theory is that in this world, Pink Bunny is the director of these movies, and they just go around tricking people into watching them. They're just like, hey, you want to see some dark web stuff? And just shows them their horrible homemade movies so someone will watch them. It's the only thing that makes this movie make sense. And then just coincidentally, there's a vampire. Actually, I forgot, there was one more segment. Girl is on Tinder, she sees a picture of a guy in her apartment, he pops out of the closet, hits her on the head, the end. So that was 2017's Dark Web. Absolutely do not recommend. It had one segment with some potential, but it's not worth a watch. It feels like someone had the rights to a few random short films, made that little Bilbo Baggins segment to tie it all together to make a few bucks. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, leave a like, consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.